My name is Bianca, and I am 67 years old. After 4 decades of teaching elementary school, I finally retired and decided to use my savings for something special. I wanted to treat my family to a luxury Hawaiian vacation. I spent months planning every detail and paid for everything in advance. What I never expected was to end up alone in that grand hotel lobby, abandoned by the very people I wanted to spoil. They had no idea I had already paid for everything. So while they slept that night, I made a decision. Let me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you want to see how justice was finally served in paradise. I spent 40 years of my life teaching 3rd graders at Oakwood Elementary. Every day, I would walk into that classroom with a thermos of coffee and a heart full of hope for those little minds. Teaching was never just a job for me. It was my calling. I poured everything into those children, guiding them through multiplication tables and the magic of reading. The salary was modest, but the rewards were immeasurable in the form of thank you notes and watching my students grow. When I retired 5 years ago, I had a decent pension and savings. Nothing extravagant, mind you. I lived in the same 2-bedroom house I had purchased 30 years earlier. I drove the same sedan for 12 years. I clipped coupons and watched sales. Some might call it frugal, but I call it practical. I never saw the point in luxury for myself when that money could be saved for something meaningful. My daughter Amanda was always the light of my life. As a single mother, I worked extra summer school sessions to give her everything she needed. We were incredibly close throughout her childhood and college years. She would call me daily, sharing every detail of her life. That changed 5 years ago when she married Jackson. Jackson works in finance and has strong opinions about everything. From the beginning, there was tension between us. He would make comments about my modest home or my outdated fashion sense. At family gatherings, he would talk over me or dismiss my ideas. I tried to connect with him, but he seemed to resent my close relationship with Amanda. I noticed the phone calls from my daughter became less frequent after they married. My grandchildren, Zoe and Tyler, used to love visiting me. Zoe is 16 now, and Tyler is 14. When they were little, they would run into my arms whenever they saw me. Now they barely look up from their phones when I visit. The last time I brought homemade cookies, Tyler asked if they were gluten-free before declining them without waiting for my answer. Zoe rolled her eyes when I suggested we play a board game like we used to. The growing distance broke my heart. I would lie awake some nights wondering what I had done wrong or how I could bridge this widening gap. That is when the idea came to me. What if I used a significant portion of my savings to give them an experience we could all share? A luxury vacation where we could reconnect away from daily distractions. For 6 months, I researched destinations. I settled on Hawaii specifically, a 5-star resort on Maui with oceanfront suites and all the amenities a family could want. I spent hours comparing flight options, reading resort reviews, and planning activities that everyone would enjoy. I created a detailed itinerary that included free time and group experiences. The total cost made me gasp when I calculated it. Nearly $20,000 for the 7-day trip. It would take a significant chunk of my retirement fund, but I convinced myself it would be worth it to rebuild our family bonds. I decided to pay for everything in advance. The flights, the hotel, the activities, even meal credits at the resort restaurants. I wanted it to be a complete gift with no financial stress for anyone. I imagined us walking on the beach together, laughing over dinner, and creating memories that would last long after we returned home. In my mind, this vacation would heal whatever was broken between us. I pictured Jackson finally warming up to me when he saw how generous I could be. I imagined the teenagers reconnecting with me like when they were younger. As the departure date approached, my excitement grew. I packed small, thoughtful gifts for each family member. A beach hat for Amanda that matched one I bought for myself. Snorkeling gear for the kids. A book about Hawaiian history for Jackson, knowing he enjoyed reading about new places. Of course, I had moments of doubt. What if this grand gesture fell flat? What if 7 days together only highlighted our problems instead of solving them? I pushed these thoughts aside and focused on my hopeful vision of family harmony. The flight to Hawaii was long but uneventful. Amanda sat next to me for the first leg of the journey, and we had a nice conversation about her work. It felt like old times for a brief moment. When we arrived at the resort, everyone seemed impressed by the lush grounds and open-air lobby with its view of the Pacific Ocean. the staff greeted us with fresh flower lace and cold towels. The resort exceeded even my expectations. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze, the ocean stretched endlessly before us, and the scent of plumeria filled the air. Our rooms were in the same wing, with connecting doors between them. The grandchildren raced around, exploring every detail of their room, while Amanda and Jackson stood on their balcony, admiring the view. During check-in, the concierge mentioned our prepaid package, but thankfully no one seemed to notice as they were distracted by the beauty around us. I had planned to reveal my gift at a special dinner later in the week. For now, I simply enjoyed seeing their faces light up as we explored our temporary paradise. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful about our family. Our first evening at the resort, we gathered for dinner at the beachfront restaurant. Tiki torches illuminated the outdoor seating area, and musicians played traditional Hawaiian music nearby. The setting was exactly what I had envisioned when planning this trip, the perfect backdrop for family bonding. As we settled into our table, Jackson picked up the menu, and his eyebrows shot up immediately. $45 for fish. Are they catching it with gold nets? He remarked loudly enough for nearby diners to hear. Amanda placed a hand on his arm. The prices are what we expected, honey. It is a resort. Jackson looked directly at me. I hope you have factored all this into your budget, Bianca. These prices are steep. I felt a flutter of anxiety. Should I tell them now that everything was already paid for? I had imagined a more special moment for the revelation, perhaps, during a sunset dinner later in the week. If I told them now, would it seem like I was just responding to his concern rather than presenting it as the loving gift I intended? Do not worry about the prices, I said carefully. This vacation is my treat. That seemed to satisfy him for the moment, though I noticed him ordering one of the less expensive options. Throughout dinner, I kept almost revealing my secret, but something held me back. I wanted their genuine appreciation, not relief about costs. The next morning, I was up early, excited about the snorkeling excursion I had booked months ago. The tour would take us to a protected bay known for its clear water and abundant sea turtles. I had specifically chosen it because the company had excellent reviews for being patient with beginners, knowing Tyler had never snorkeled before. I knocked on their doors at 8:30, as we needed to meet the tour boat by 9:15. Amanda answered in her robe, looking surprised. Mom, we are still getting ready for breakfast. What is the rush? The snorkeling tour leaves in 45 minutes, I explained. I mentioned it last night before we all went to bed. Amanda sighed. Right, I forgot. Can we not do it tomorrow instead? The kids were up late with jet lag. After some discussion, they reluctantly agreed to hurry. We arrived at the dock 5 minutes late, and the guide gave us a brief rushed orientation before we boarded. What should have been a leisurely introduction to Hawaiian marine life became a stressful experience, as Jackson repeatedly checked his watch, and the teenagers complained about being hungry. In the water, I tried to point out a colorful parrotfish to Zoe, but she had already swum back to the boat. Tyler stayed close to his father, barely putting his face in the water. The 2-hour excursion was cut short when Jackson signaled to the guide that we were ready to return after just 1 hour. Back at the resort, everyone quickly dispersed. Amanda and Jackson headed to the pool bar, while the teenagers found the resort game room. I returned to my suite alone, disappointed, but still hopeful that tomorrow would be better. That evening over dinner, I suggested activities for the following day, careful to present options rather than a fixed plan. There is a great hiking trail that leads to a waterfall, I began. Or we could take a drive along the famous road to Hana. Jackson cut in before I could finish. I think we can figure out what to do without a scheduled itinerary, Bianca. This is supposed to be a vacation, not a school field trip. I saw Amanda wince slightly, but she said nothing to defend me. Instead, she changed the subject to the spa treatments she was interested in trying. The conversation moved on, but the sting of his words remained. Later that night, as I walked back to my room, I overheard Jackson and Amanda talking on their balcony. I had not intended to eavesdrop, but Jackson's carrying voice made it impossible not to hear. This trip feels like being held hostage by your mother, he said. Everything has to be her way on her schedule. She means well, Amanda replied, but her tone lacked conviction. She is controlling everything because she is paying. Classic power move. I hurried past, my cheeks burning with humiliation and hurt. Is that what they thought of me? That I was trying to control them? I had only wanted to ensure we made the most of our time together. That night I tossed and turned, replaying his words in my mind. The next morning I made a decision. I would step back and let them choose the activities. No suggestions, no planning from me. "What would everyone like to do today?" I asked at breakfast, forcing brightness into my voice. The response was immediate. Zoe wanted to try surfing lessons. Tyler was interested in a zip-lining adventure. Amanda mentioned a catamaran sunset cruise, and Jackson talked about renting a Jeep to explore on our own. All activities I had researched and quietly prepaid for, though they had no idea. "Those all sound wonderful," I said. "Why do not we split up and each do what we want? We can meet for dinner and share our experiences." They seemed surprised by my flexibility, but quickly agreed. As they discussed logistics, I heard Jackson mutter to Amanda, "I hope your mom can afford all this. That catamaran cruise is not cheap." Their assumption that I was paying as we went along led to several insensitive comments throughout the day. When we regrouped for dinner, Tyler casually mentioned that he had added his ziplining photo package to my room charge. "Thanks for covering it, Grandma. It was $60. No acknowledgement of the $300 ziplining experience itself that I had already paid for. Just an assumption that another $60 was nothing to me. Zoe showed off the surfing photos on her phone. The instructor said I was a natural. "Can I do the advanced class tomorrow? It is only $50 more than the beginner one." Again, no appreciation for the lesson I had already provided, just a request for more. I excused myself early from dinner that night, claiming fatigue from the Sunday. In reality, I needed space to process my growing disappointment. In my room, I sat on the balcony, watching the waves crash against the shore, and wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. I had saved for years for this vacation, imagining grateful family members and strengthened relationships. Instead, I felt like a walking ATM, unappreciated and taken for granted. Should I tell them that everything was already paid for? Would that change their attitude? Or would it only reinforce Jackson's perception that I was using money to control them? I decided to wait a little longer. Surely things would improve. 3 more days and we would be halfway through our vacation. Perhaps the magic of Hawaii would eventually work on all of us. By the 3rd day of our vacation, the tension had become a constant companion, as reliable as the trade winds that swept across the island. At breakfast, Jackson made a point of questioning the coffee prices listed on the menu. $9 for a cup of coffee that probably costs 50 cents to make. "The markup in these tourist traps is criminal," he said, looking pointedly at me as if I personally set the prices. I smiled tightly and suggested we could make coffee in our rooms using the provided coffee makers if the restaurant prices bothered him. This only led to a lecture from Jackson about how I was missing the principle of the matter. The grandchildren had discovered a group of teenagers their age staying at the resort, and now spent most of their time at the activities designed for their age group. While I was glad they were enjoying themselves, it hurt that they made no effort to include me in their experiences. When I asked Zoe about her new friends, she gave one-word answers before returning to her phone. Amanda had become the peacekeeper, constantly smoothing over rough moments between Jackson and me. But I noticed she increasingly sided with him in any disagreement, no matter how small. When I suggested we all meet for lunch, she quickly backed Jackson when he said they had already made other plans. "Mom, you need to understand that we all want some independence on this vacation," she said, not unkindly, but firmly. "We do not need to do everything as a group." That afternoon, alone in my room, I finalized plans for what I hoped would be the turning point of our trip. I had booked a private sunset dinner cruise months ago. It was the most expensive single activity of the vacation, featuring a gourmet meal prepared by a local chef, premium beverages, and the best views of the Hawaiian sunset from the water. I had even arranged for a photographer to capture what I hoped would be precious family memories. When I called everyone to my room to tell them about the special evening I had planned, the response was lukewarm at best. "Do we have to dress up?" Zoe complained. "I was going to hang out with Madison and Kai tonight." "How long is this cruise?" Jackson asked. I was looking forward to catching the basketball game at the sports bar. Amanda, seeing my face fall, stepped in. "It sounds lovely, Mom. What time do we need to be ready?" They all showed up at the marina, though 15 minutes later than requested. The captain was gracious about the delay, but I felt embarrassed as we were the last to board. The other 2 couples on the private cruise had already been served their welcome champagne. The yacht was beautiful with polished wood and comfortable seating both inside the cabin and on deck. As we pulled away from the shore, the captain pointed out historical landmarks and shared stories about the island. Tyler had his earbuds in, missing everything. Zoe took photos but was clearly texting her new friends at the same time. The dinner setting was everything I had hoped for. White linen tablecloth, fine china, and elegant centerpieces featuring local flowers. The table was positioned perfectly to watch the sun begin its descent toward the horizon. I had specified all of their favorite foods when booking, and the chef had created a custom menu incorporating local Hawaiian ingredients. As we were seated, I tried to create a warm, nostalgic atmosphere by sharing stories from Amanda's childhood. "Do you remember that summer we camped by Lake Michigan and you were convinced you saw a mermaid?" I asked her, smiling at the memory. Before Amanda could respond, Jackson rolled his eyes. "Another trip down memory lane. Can we just enjoy the present for once?" I fell silent, stung by his dismissal. The server brought our first course and I tried again to engage the family in conversation. But Zoe and Tyler were both on their phones beneath the table, responding with minimal engagement. Jackson dominated what conversation there was with complaints about work emails he was still receiving despite being on vacation. As the main course was served, the sun began to set, painting the sky in spectacular shades of orange and pink. I had asked the server to bring a special bottle of champagne I had ordered for a toast. My plan was to finally reveal that this entire trip was my gift to them, paid in full from my savings. I thought perhaps this gesture would reset the tone of our vacation. The server appeared with the champagne, just as the sun touched the horizon. Perfect timing. "I would like to make a toast." I began, my heart pounding with anticipation. This vacation means so much to me because... Jackson cut me off. "Can we not do the formal speech thing? Some of us just want to relax without everything turning into a Hallmark moment." Amanda placed her hand on mine. "Mom, we know you like to make everything special, but you are kind of taking over the vacation with all these planned activities and moments." "Taking over," I repeated, confused. "I thought I was treating you all to experiences you would enjoy." "That is exactly what I mean," Amanda said with a sigh. "You are trying to buy our enjoyment. Not everything needs to be a grand gesture." The words hit me like a physical blow. Is that what they thought? That I was trying to buy their love? "That is not fair," I said, my voice quivering slightly. "I just wanted us to have quality time together." "Quality time does not need to be micromanaged," Jackson interjected, "or come with strings attached." "What strings?" I asked, genuinely confused. "I have not asked for anything in return. Except gratitude, appreciation." Playing along with your perfect family fantasy, Jackson continued, warming to his topic. "Amanda feels suffocated but is too nice to tell you." Amanda shot him a look but did not contradict him. "Is that true?" I asked her, directly aware that the other passengers and crew were now trying not to stare at our family drama. "Sometimes your expectations are a lot to handle, Mom," she admitted quietly. "This trip feels like it is more about what you want than what any of us want." I sat in stunned silence as the beautiful sunset continued without anyone appreciating it. The photographer I had hired discreetly backed away, surely sensing this was not the joyful family moment I had described when booking. The remainder of the cruise passed in uncomfortable silence. I excused myself to the restroom where I cried quietly, trying to understand how my gesture of love had been so completely misinterpreted. When I returned to the table, the conversation had moved on to superficial topics, carefully avoiding anything meaningful. We returned to the resort without the family photos I had envisioned, or the appreciative moment I had hoped for. Everyone quickly dispersed to their rooms with brief, awkward goodnights. Alone in my room, I pulled out old family photos I had brought along. Images of Amanda as a child, smiling with her front teeth missing, pictures of the grandchildren as babies in my arms. Holidays and birthdays, where we all seemed genuinely happy to be together. Had I imagined that closeness, or had it slipped away so gradually that I had not noticed until it was gone? The next morning at breakfast, I suggested we spend the day at the beach. It was a free activity that required no planning or expense. "Are you getting worried about money now?" Jackson asked, realizing this lavish trip might have been beyond your budget. Yeah, Grandma, yesterday you wanted to do all these expensive excursions and now suddenly you want a free beach day, Zoe added. I just thought a relaxing day might be nice, I said quietly. Well, Tyler and I already signed up for the outrigger canoe experience this afternoon, Zoe informed me. They said we could just charge it to the room. More charges they assumed I would cover without question. More activities they chose without including me. Later that afternoon, as I sat alone on the beach watching families play together in the surf, Jackson approached and sat on the lounge chair next to mine. Amanda asked me to check on you, he said, making it clear this was not his idea. She thinks you are upset. I am fine, I replied automatically. Look, Bianca, I think we should be clear about something. We appreciate you contributing to this vacation, but I need to know exactly how much you are spending and what you expect us to cover. I do not like financial ambiguity. I nearly told him then. The words were on the tip of my tongue. The revelation that would show him just how generous I had been and how ungrateful they had all been in return. But looking at his face, I saw no genuine concern, just a man who wanted to establish control over the situation. We can discuss the finances later, I said instead. This is supposed to be a vacation. He shrugged and stood up. Suit yourself, but do not complain later if you feel like you paid more than your share. As he walked away, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was transforming into something else, something harder and more resolute. I was beginning to see my family through new eyes, and the view was breaking my heart. On the 5th day of our 7-day vacation, I received a text from Amanda asking me to meet the family in the lobby at 11 in the morning. Her message was cryptic, mentioning only that they wanted to talk about the rest of the trip. I spent the morning wondering what this family meeting might entail, hoping perhaps they had planned a surprise for me to make up for the tension of previous days. I arrived at the lobby precisely at 11, wearing a new sundress I had bought specifically for the trip, and a hopeful smile that felt increasingly forced. I spotted them immediately seated in a cluster of rattan chairs near the koi pond. All 4 of them wore serious expressions that made my heart sink. "Mom, thanks for coming," Amanda said, as I approached her, tone formal as if this were a business meeting rather than a family vacation. I took the only empty seat, suddenly aware of how they had positioned themselves across from me, rather than leaving a space beside any of them. It felt like an intervention, not a family gathering. "We wanted to talk to you about the vacation dynamics," Amanda continued, glancing at Jackson for support. Jackson leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees in a posture that reminded me of a stern principal about to deliver bad news. "Bianca, we need to be direct about something that has been bothering all of us." I nodded, unable to speak past the knot forming in my throat. "You have been using this vacation and your financial contribution to manipulate the family," he stated flatly. "The constant planning, the guilt trips when we want to do our own thing, the passive-aggressive comments about costs. It is creating a negative experience for everyone." Manipulate, I finally managed the word, feeling foreign on my tongue. I have not tried to manipulate anyone. Zoe looked up from her phone long enough to add, "Grandma, you get this look whenever we want to do something that was not in your plan. Like we are disappointing you by having our own ideas. And you keep bringing up old stories and trying to make everything some big emotional moment," Tyler added. "It is kind of ruining the vacation vibe." I looked to Amanda, hoping my daughter at least would understand my intentions. Instead, she delivered the most painful blow of all. "Mom, we need some space from you. This is supposed to be a relaxing family vacation, but everyone feels like they are walking on eggshells trying to fulfill your expectations. It is exhausting." "Space," I repeated the word, barely audible. Jackson nodded decisively. "We have discussed it, and we think it would be best if we moved to a different section of the resort for the remainder of the trip." A different section. My mind struggled to process what was happening. "You want to move away from me?" "Just to give everyone some breathing room," Amanda explained, not quite meeting my eyes. "We will still see you for dinner, maybe, but during the day we all need to feel free to enjoy our vacation without pressure. And we will pay our own way from here on out," Jackson added. "No more putting charges on your room or expecting you to cover everything. That will eliminate any financial tension." If only they knew. If only they understood that there were no financial obligations. That everything had already been paid for out of love. I opened my mouth to explain, to finally reveal the truth about my gift, but Amanda raised her hand in a stopping gesture. "We have made our decision, Mom. Please respect it, and do not try to make us feel guilty about needing some space." "I never intended to make anyone feel guilty," I said, hearing the tremor in my voice. "Everything I planned was meant to bring us closer together." "That is the problem," Jackson said. "You cannot force closeness with an expensive vacation and a rigid itinerary. Relationships do not work that way." With that, the four of them stood in unison, a united front against me. "We will have the front desk arrange the room change," Jackson stated. "Our bags will be moved this afternoon." They walked away, leaving me alone in the grand lobby of the resort I had so carefully selected. Amanda glanced back once, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face, but Jackson placed his hand on her back and guided her forward. I sat motionless as the reality of what had just happened washed over me. My own family had effectively banished me from their vacation, the vacation I had paid for entirely. The gift they never knew about because I had been waiting for the perfect moment to tell them. Minutes stretched into hours as I remained in that lobby chair watching other families walk by. Happy couples holding hands, parents playing with their children, grandparents being treated with respect and inclusion. Everything I had hoped for and failed to receive. Guests entered and exited the lobby, staff members bustled about, and the Hawaiian music continued to play from hidden speakers, creating a surreal soundtrack to my devastation. I had never felt so alone or so foolish. As the afternoon sun began to cast longer shadows across the marble floor, an elderly man in a resort uniform approached with a tray. "Excuse me, ma'am. I noticed you have been sitting here for some time. Would you care for some tea?" His name tag read Luis, and his kind eyes crinkled at the corners with genuine concern. It was the first real warmth I had experienced in days. "That would be lovely, thank you," I managed. Luis set down a cup of fragrant tea, and then, to my surprise, asked if he could sit for a moment during his break. I nodded, grateful for the company. "Forgive me for intruding," he said softly, "but I could not help noticing your distress. Sometimes it helps to talk to a stranger." Perhaps it was his grandfatherly manner or simply my desperate need to unburden myself, but I found myself telling Luis the entire story, about planning the trip as a surprise gift, about paying for everything in advance, about the growing tension and the final confrontation that left me alone in the lobby. Luis listened without interruption, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he shared a story of his own about family and gratitude and the painful lesson he had learned about setting boundaries. "It took me 72 years to realize that love without respect is not really love at all," he said, "and that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is to stop accepting mistreatment, even from family." As we talked, my emotions evolved from crushing sadness to simmering anger. Not a destructive rage, but a clarifying anger that helped me see the situation with new eyes. For years, I had accepted diminishing returns on my emotional investments in this family. I had told myself that giving more would eventually earn their appreciation, but the pattern was clear now. As evening approached, Luis had to return to work, but his parting words stayed with me. "Remember, Senora, respect is not a luxury, it is a necessity." I finally returned to my room as the sun was setting, my mind clearer than it had been in days. As I inserted my key card, I noticed a piece of paper that had been slid under my door. It was a resort bill. Not the final bill, but a summary of charges incurred during our stay so far. I scanned the itemized list with increasing disbelief. In addition to the numerous activities I had prepaid for, there were extensive charges for spa treatments I knew nothing about, couples massages for Amanda and Jackson, a private cabana rental, premium wine purchased at the pool bar, and most surprisingly, room service charges from the night before when they had claimed to be too tired for dinner. This was the final straw. The evidence of their entitlement was spelled out in black and white before me. They had complained about my controlling nature, while happily allowing me to foot the bill for their luxury indulgences. Even as they criticized me for buying their love, they had no qualms about spending my money. I stood on my balcony watching the sunset colors fade from the sky, feeling a strange calm settle over me. In the distance, I could see my family returning to the resort, laughing together as they crossed the pool area. They stopped at the outdoor bar ordering drinks that would no doubt appear on my bill tomorrow. In that moment, something crystallized within me. A decision, a boundary, a reclaiming of my self-respect, I watched until I was certain they had all returned to their rooms for the night. And then I made my move. From my balcony, I tracked my family's movements through the evening. I saw them return from dinner stop for one last drink at the pool bar and finally head to their rooms around 11:30. I waited another hour, watching their lights go out one by one, confirming they had settled in for the night. My mind raced as I considered what I was about to do. Was it petty? Perhaps. Was it deserved? Absolutely. They had made their feelings crystal clear in the lobby earlier. Now it was time for me to respond in kind. I debated the morality of my planned actions. Would this make me just as manipulative as they accused me of being? But then I remembered Luis's words about self-respect and Jackson's smug tone as he announced they would pay their own way as if it were a generous concession, rather than basic adult responsibility. At precisely 1 a.m, I left my room and walked through the quiet resort to the front desk. The night manager, a young Hawaiian woman named Kailani, greeted me with professional warmth despite the late hour. "How may I assist you tonight, Mrs. Green?" she asked. "I need to make some adjustments to my family's accommodation arrangements," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Kailani listened attentively as I explained the situation. I told her about paying for the entire vacation in advance as a surprise gift, about the family meeting where they announced they wanted space from me, about their decision to move to a different part of the resort while still charging extras to my room. "I understand completely," Kailani said, her expression softening with sympathy. "What would you like to do?" I presented my credit card and the original booking confirmation. I would like to cancel their rooms for the remaining 3 nights of our stay. Kailani looked momentarily surprised. "The rooms that your family is currently occupying?" "Yes," I confirmed. "They made it clear they want independence from me. I am simply granting their wish more completely than they anticipated." "I see," she said carefully. "And their personal belongings?" "They will need to make arrangements for those just as they planned to do when moving to another section of the resort today." Kailani typed something into her computer. "And the charges they have been making to your master account. Please ensure that all their personal charges remain on their individual folios. The prepaid package covers their accommodation, basic meals, and the activities I specifically arranged. Everything else should be their responsibility." As Kailani processed my request, I had a moment of doubt. Was I going too far? But then I remembered how they had left me alone in the lobby for hours, not one of them returning to check if I was okay. "Mrs. Green," Kailani said, interrupting my thoughts. "I have processed the cancellation for the remaining nights. I see you are still staying with us for those nights, correct?" "Yes, that is right. If you would be more comfortable, I can arrange to move you to a different section of the resort as well, perhaps somewhere they would not immediately look for you." I had not considered this possibility. "That would be very helpful, thank you." In fact, she continued typing rapidly, "We have a premium oceanfront suite that has just become available due to a cancellation. I would be happy to upgrade you at no additional charge." For the first time in days, I felt a genuine smile form. "That is extremely kind of you." "Not at all. We value our guests, who treat our staff with respect." Her emphasis on the last word made me wonder if my family had been less than courteous to the resort employees. Kailani arranged for my belongings to be moved discreetly while my family slept. She then prepared a brief note to be delivered to each of their rooms at the standard checkout time of 10 the next morning. The note simply stated that their accommodations had been canceled and they would need to either make new arrangements or check out by 11. "Is there anything else you would like me to tell them when they inevitably come to the front desk?" she asked. I thought for a moment. Just that I have given them the space they requested, and that sometimes independence comes with financial responsibilities. Kailani smiled knowingly. "I will convey that message." As I returned to my room to pack the few items the staff would move for me, I felt a complex mix of emotions. There was vindication, certainly, but also sadness that it had come to this. I had arrived in Hawaii hoping to strengthen family bonds and would leave having severed them further. I spent a sleepless night wondering if I had made the right decision. Second-guessing myself had always been my weakness. Had I overreacted, would this permanent damage my relationship with my daughter and grandchildren? But then I would remember Jackson's condescending tone, Amanda's failure to defend me, and the teenager's complete disregard for my feelings and my resolve would strengthen again. Early the next morning, a bellhop escorted me to my new suite. It was spectacular, with a wrap-around balcony offering panoramic ocean views and a living area larger than my entire apartment back home. The staff had arranged a welcome basket of fruit and local treats, with a handwritten note from Kailani, wishing me a peaceful remainder of your stay. I settled into a lounge chair on the balcony to watch the sunrise paint the sky in delicate shades of pink and gold. For the first time since arriving in Hawaii, I felt something close to peace. The constant anxiety of trying to please my ungrateful family had lifted, leaving room for other emotions to surface. At precisely 10 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Kailani. "Mrs. Green, I wanted to let you know that the checkout notices have been delivered to your family's rooms as requested. The gentleman has already called the front desk quite colorfully. Would you like me to block their calls to your room?" "Yes, please," I said. "And is there a way to block their access to this section of the resort? I truly do not wish to see them right now." "Already done," she assured me. "Security has been notified that only authorized guests are permitted in the premium wing. Your privacy will be protected." I thanked her and turned off my cell phone, knowing it would soon be flooded with angry messages. Whatever drama was unfolding at the front desk, I did not want to witness it. For once, I would put my own peace of mind first. My first day of freedom began with a decision to treat myself to all the experiences I had denied myself while focusing on my family's preferences. I ordered a decadent breakfast from room service and ate it slowly on my balcony, savoring each bite without worry about anyone else's schedule or preferences. After breakfast, I booked a massage at the resort spa, selecting the 90-minute hot stone therapy I had admired on the menu but had considered too indulgent when calculating the family vacation budget. As I lay on the massage table feeling the warm stones release years of tension from my shoulders, I reflected on how rarely I prioritized my own comfort. "You are carrying a lot of tension for someone on vacation," my massage therapist commented, as she worked on a particularly stubborn knot in my shoulder. "Family complications," I replied simply. "Ah, the people we love most often create the stress we need most to release," she said wisely. In the relaxation room after my treatment, I met a woman about my age, sitting alone with a cup of herbal tea. She introduced herself as Eleanor, a retired librarian from Oregon. "Are you here with family?" she asked conversationally. I replied, surprised by my willingness to share with a stranger, but we have gone our separate ways. Something in my tone must have revealed more than my words, because Eleanor gave me a knowing look. Family vacations rarely match the brochure descriptions, do they? Over tea, I found myself sharing the entire story with Eleanor. Like me, she had experienced family estrangement and the painful journey toward establishing healthy boundaries. Her daughter had not spoken to her for 3 years after Eleanor refused to continue financially supporting her gambling-addicted son-in-law. "The hardest lesson I ever learned was that loving someone does not mean becoming their doormat," Eleanor said. "It took losing my relationship with my daughter temporarily to eventually build a healthier one." Her words resonated deeply with me. We exchanged phone numbers and made plans to meet for dinner that evening. When I returned to my room, I finally turned on my phone to face the inevitable barrage. 6 missed calls from Amanda, 4 from Jackson, and over 20 text messages ranging from confused to angry to threatening. The most recent text from Amanda read, "Mom, this is completely inappropriate. Where are you? The front desk says you canceled our rooms and moved somewhere else. Please call immediately." Jackson's message was more direct. "Your behavior is unacceptable. There could be legal implications for abandonment. Call us now." I felt a flash of anxiety at the word legal, but then remembered that my adult daughter and her family could hardly claim abandonment while staying at a luxury resort with access to credit cards and transportation. After careful consideration, I composed a single message to Amanda. "I have given you the space you requested. As you and Jackson made clear yesterday, you want independence from me and my controlling ways. I have simply expedited that process. Everything that was prepaid as part of my gift remains available to you. Additional charges are your responsibility, as Jackson himself suggested. I am taking time for myself now. Please respect my decision as I was asked to respect yours." I pressed send and then turned off notifications. I knew this was not the end of the conversation, but I needed time to process my own feelings before engaging further with theirs. That evening I met Eleanor for dinner at the resort's signature restaurant. To my surprise, she had gathered a small group of solo travelers she had met during her stay. There was Richard, a widower celebrating what would have been his 50th anniversary, Maria, a recently divorced attorney on a self-care trip, and Thomas, a retired professor writing a book on Hawaiian culture. "I hope you do not mind the extra company," Eleanor said. "I have found that solo travelers tend to form the most interesting dinner parties." She was right. The conversation flowed effortlessly among people unburdened by long-standing relationship dynamics. We shared travel stories, career highlights, and personal philosophies without the weight of history coloring every word. I found myself laughing genuinely for the first time in years. Midway through dinner, Luis, the kind server from the lobby, stopped by our table. He was off-duty but recognized me immediately. "Ah, Senora, I see you have found good company," he said with approval. "May I join you for a moment?" He pulled up a chair, and Eleanor instantly included him in the conversation. When the others learned he had been working at the resort for over 30 years, they peppered him with questions about the changes he had witnessed. During a lull in the conversation, Luis leaned toward me. "I saw your family checking out this morning. Quite a scene they made at the front desk." "Was it terrible?" I asked, feeling a twinge of regret. "Let us just say the gentleman's vocabulary was colorful enough to teach our staff some new English phrases," Luis chuckled. "But do not worry, you did what was necessary." After Luis returned to his own dinner, the conversation at our table turned to family dynamics. Without prompting, each person shared stories of establishing boundaries, some successfully, and others with painful consequences. I was struck by how universal these experiences were, how each of us had struggled with the balance between giving and self-preservation. The hardest part, Maria observed, is overcoming the guilt, especially for women of our generation who were taught that family always comes first, even at our own expense. Indeed, Thomas agreed. The most profound act of courage is sometimes simply saying no to those we love when their demands become harmful to our spirit. By the end of dinner, I felt a sense of validation I had never experienced before. These strangers understood and supported my decision without the complicated history that family brings to every interaction. We made plans to meet for breakfast, and perhaps explore the island together the following day. The next morning, I found myself agreeing to try paddleboarding, something I would never have attempted with my judgmental family watching. The instructor, a patient young man named Kai, helped me find my balance on the board and celebrated my small victories with genuine enthusiasm. "Look at you go, Miss Bianca," he called as I successfully stood up on the board for the first time. "You are a natural—" I fell moments later, creating an ungraceful splash that would have mortified me in front of my family. But with my new friends cheering from the shore, I simply laughed and climbed back on the board for another try. That afternoon, Eleanor suggested an impromptu road trip to explore parts of the island not typically visited by tourists. Richard had rented a van that could accommodate all 5 of us, and Luis had given us directions to a local farmer's market and a hidden beach accessible only by a short hike. As we drove along coastal roads with the windows down and Hawaiian music playing, I realized I was experiencing the authentic Hawaii I had researched so carefully but would never have seen with my original travel companions. We stopped at a small family restaurant where the menu was only in Hawaiian, and Thomas's limited language skills resulted in us being served dishes we could not identify but thoroughly enjoyed. At the hidden beach, Luis had recommended we spent hours swimming in the clear water and collecting unusual shells. Maria took a photo of our group arms around each other's shoulders, the sunset creating a golden glow around us. I asked her to send it to me, thinking it might be the only vacation photo I would want to keep. Throughout the day, my phone occasionally buzzed with messages I continued to ignore. My family had apparently decided to stay on the island, booking rooms at another resort using Jackson's credit card. Amanda's messages had evolved from angry to hurt to tentatively conciliatory. The most recent simply read, "Mom, can we please talk before we all fly home tomorrow?" As I lay in bed that night, looking at the photo of my new friends and listening to the waves crash against the shore, I reflected on how differently this vacation had turned out from what I had planned. I had come seeking family connection and found instead a connection with myself that had been missing for years. I had discovered a confidence and independence I had forgotten I possessed. Tomorrow would bring difficult conversations and decisions about my relationship with Amanda and the grandchildren going forward. But tonight I allowed myself to simply feel grateful for the unexpected gifts this painful experience had brought me. On what should have been the final day of our family vacation, I rose early to join a beach meditation class Eleanor had recommended. Sitting on a yoga mat with the gentle waves as background music, I followed the instructor's guidance to focus on my breath and release thoughts without judgment. "Notice how the waves come and go," the instructor said in a soothing voice. "Like our emotions, they arise, peak, and recede. We cannot stop the waves, but we can learn to surf them rather than being pulled under." As the session ended, I felt a clarity I had been searching for throughout this tumultuous week. The anger that had fueled my decisive action 2 days ago had receded, leaving behind a calm resolve. I was ready to face whatever came next with emotional honesty rather than my usual people-pleasing instincts. Returning to my room, I found a message from Amanda asking to meet for lunch before their flight home. After careful consideration, I agreed, suggesting a public restaurant in the resort rather than a private meeting in my room. I needed the security of neutral territory for this conversation. I arrived early and selected a table overlooking the ocean but still visible from the main dining area. I did not want to be cornered or made to feel trapped during what would undoubtedly be a difficult discussion. When Amanda arrived, she was alone. Her eyes were puffy from what appeared to be a night of little sleep. She slid into the chair across from me with uncharacteristic uncertainty. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she began, her voice carrying a mixture of lingering anger and reluctant acknowledgement. "What you did was extreme and embarrassing." I remained silent, waiting for her to continue, rather than jumping to defend myself as I typically would. "Jackson wanted to come, but I thought it would be better if we talked mother to daughter first," she added when I did not immediately respond. "I appreciate that," I said simply. Amanda sighed heavily. "Mom, I do not understand how you could just cancel our rooms like that. We had to scramble to find new accommodations. Do you know how stressful that was with the kids?" "About as stressful as being abandoned in a hotel lobby by my family after being told I was too controlling and manipulative," I asked quietly. Amanda had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That was different. We just needed some space. And I gave you exactly what you asked for: complete space and independence. By blindsiding us and forcing us out of our rooms," she countered, "that is not what we meant, and you know it." "Actually, I do not know it," I replied, my voice steady. "When you tell someone you need space from them, you do not get to dictate exactly how much space or on what terms. You made a clear statement about wanting independence from me and my financial support." The server arrived to take our drink orders, providing a brief respite from the tension. After he left, Amanda leaned forward. "Can we just be honest about what this was really about? You were angry that we called you out on trying to control the vacation, so you retaliated. There is some truth to that," I acknowledged. "But the larger truth is that this vacation revealed something important about our relationship that I can no longer ignore." "And what is that?" she asked defensively. "That I have been allowing myself to be used and taken for granted for years, all while telling myself it was what a loving mother does." Amanda's expression hardened. "So now we are using you. That is unfair." "Is it?" I asked, opening my purse and removing the itemized resort bill I had brought with me. "I saved for 3 years to give our family this vacation. I paid for everything in advance. The flights, the rooms, the planned activities, even meal credits. Nearly $20,000, Amanda. Money I withdrew from my retirement account." Her eyes widened as I spoke, genuine surprise registering on her face. "You never told us," she said quietly. I was waiting for the right moment. I wanted it to be a special surprise, not something I announced because Jackson was complaining about prices. "But all those times you asked about the budget, or seemed concerned about extra charges, was me trying to decide whether to reveal my gift or not," I finished for her. "But beyond the money, what hurts most is how little effort any of you made to include me in this vacation. How quickly you all dismissed my suggestions and separated into your own activities. How Jackson spoke to me with such consistent disrespect, and how you never once defended me." Amanda looked down at her hands. "Jackson can be harsh sometimes. I know that. And yet you allow it. You enable it. And now the children are learning to treat me the same way." The server returned with our drinks and took our lunch orders. The interruption gave Amanda time to process what I had said. "Mom, I had no idea you had paid for everything," she finally said. "That does change things." "Does it?" I asked. "Would you have treated me differently if you had known? Because that is actually worse. It suggests you only value me when I am financially useful to you." Amanda flinched. "That is not fair. This is not just about money." "You are right. It is about respect, about appreciation, about treating people with basic kindness regardless of what they can give you." Jackson has been under a lot of stress at work. Amanda began the excuse sounding hollow even to her own ears, and the kids are at difficult ages. "Everyone has stress, Amanda. Everyone goes through difficult ages. Those are not excuses for treating someone who loves you like an inconvenience." We fell into silence as our food arrived. I noticed Amanda barely touched her salad, pushing the avocado slices around her plate. "So what now?" she finally asked. "Are you just done with us? One bad vacation and you write off your family?" "No," I said gently. "I am not done with you. But I am done with the old dynamic. I will not continue to be the accommodating doormat who gives everything and expects nothing in return." "That is not how I see you," Amanda protested. "Perhaps not consciously, but actions speak louder than words, and the actions of this week told a very clear story." Amanda wiped away a tear. "I am sorry, Mom. I truly am. I should have stood up for you when Jackson was being difficult. I should have made more effort to spend time with you." I noted that her apology, while seeming genuine, still included qualifiers and focused on specific incidents rather than the pattern of behavior. It was a start, but not a complete recognition of the deeper issues. "I accept your apology," I said, "but healing our relationship will take more than words. It will require changed behavior from all of you and a new set of boundaries from me." "What kind of boundaries?" she asked cautiously. "For one, I will not subject myself to Jackson's disrespect anymore. If he cannot speak to me with basic courtesy, I will remove myself from the situation. Second, I expect acknowledgement of my contributions rather than entitled acceptance. And third, I need you to recognize that my time and feelings are as valuable as anyone else's in the family." Amanda nodded slowly. "That seems reasonable. Additionally," I continued, "I have decided to extend my stay here in Hawaii for another week." "What? But we are all flying home tomorrow." "Yes, you are. I am not. I have made some wonderful new friends here, and we have plans to explore more of the island together." Amanda looked genuinely surprised. "You made friends on your own?" "Try not to sound so shocked," I said with a small smile. "I had a life before I was your mother, you know. Making connections with people used to be one of my strengths before I narrowed my world to just family." We finished our meal with tentative plans to talk once I returned home. As we said goodbye in the restaurant lobby, Amanda initiated a hug that felt less obligatory than usual. "I am sorry this vacation did not turn out the way you planned," she said. "Actually," I replied thoughtfully, "it may have given me exactly what I needed, just not in the way I expected." After Amanda left, I rejoined Eleanor and our travel group for our final dinner together. Luis stopped by our table with a special dessert he had arranged for us, a pineapple boat filled with tropical sorbets. To new beginnings, he toasted, raising his water glass to join our celebration. As we shared the dessert and finalized plans for our extended island adventures, I reflected on the unexpected journey this vacation had become. I had arrived hoping to strengthen family bonds and instead discovered the importance of my relationship with myself. I had planned every detail, only to find that the most meaningful experiences were the unplanned ones. The painful revelation of how my family viewed me had ultimately freed me from the exhausting effort of trying to earn love through sacrifice and generosity. I could now see that I had been enabling their entitled behavior for years, mistaking self-sacrifice for love. Eleanor and I made plans to meet for a painting class the next morning, the first of many activities in our extended stay. I had also promised to visit Luis and his wife at their home for an authentic Hawaiian dinner before I left the island. Looking around at these new friends who had accepted me as I was without years of complicated history or expectations, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for this difficult but transformative week. I still loved my family deeply, and I hoped that with time and new boundaries we could build a healthier relationship. But I no longer believed that love required me to accept mistreatment or dismiss my own needs. The most valuable souvenir I would take home from Hawaii was not a photograph or trinket, but this new understanding of my own worth. As our dinner wound down and we walked along the beach under the stars, I thought about how sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to stand up for our own value. True generosity comes from a place of strength and self-respect, not from allowing ourselves to be taken for granted. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with people you love? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more stories about life's challenging but important lessons. Thank you for joining me on this journey of self-discovery. Remember that it is never too late to teach people how to treat you with the respect you deserve. Until next time, I wish you the courage to honor your own worth.